morning. Welcome to the Kingsport News Hour for the 29th day of the 7th month and the 16th year of Chungi. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chen Guk Jimun. Today I have a little surprise video for you, but it's not much of it. It's a maybe 3-second video or something like that. But anyway, the king took a few of us on a field trip. And it was quite a field trip. Anyway, I shouldn't pump it up too much. Then you'll just be disappointed. But anyway, let's go through our usual trip around the kingdom and see what is going on there. Right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 61 degrees and partly cloudy, and some sun followed by some clouds and widely separated thunderstorms this afternoon. High of 83 in Chongpyeong, 57 for a low tonight, with mainly clear skies. And then at the what's this? Okay, at the Cheongju hometown of our true father in North Carolina province, Korea, currently North Korea. It is currently 60 degrees and partly cloudy. Tonight, getting down to 50 degrees under clear skies, and tomorrow, partly sunny and nice, 78. Madam Morris, the Cheongguk Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, it is 43 degrees and clear, abundant sunshine, a beautiful start to the weekend. High of 74 degrees, and tonight, clear and low of 43. Liberty Rock RV Parking Campground in Limestone County, Texas, currently clear in 66. Mostly sunny, but a high of 93 today. Okay. Tonight, partly cloudy and humid, low of 69. And at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, 70 and mostly clear through the night, and 60 degrees for a low. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 81. And at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, light rain and 69. Cloudy and humid with a brief shower or two, low of 69. That's where it is now. And tomorrow, mostly cloudy and warmer, high of 86. And at the Ilan property in Taiwan, it is currently 86 degrees and overcast, a thunderstorm around this evening, otherwise partly cloudy, low of 76. And tomorrow, a little rain in the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy, hot, humid, and a high of 93. All right, let's go to Father's Word. Let's go here. And today we are in the book on True Families. So Book of True Families and chapter 6, section 6. And Father speaking here, actually this is taking from the book Blessed Families and the Ideal World, page 374. If the fall had not occurred, who would they have, in other words, Adam and Eve, who would they have shared the first love with? Who would they have shared their first love with? They would have shared their first love with God. And and so in that first love that Adam and Eve would have shared with God on the first night, the entirety of their true love would have been shared with God. So centering on the first love, there would have been the love of parents, and the love of husband and wife, and love of children. All that love would have been shared with with God, and the root of that love would have been completely connected fully with God. With God. It's important teaching of fathers that when we are blessed, it is not just a blessing between one man and one woman. It's a blessing between one man, one woman, and God. We make our 4 promises to God, right? I'm sure if you've gone through the blessing, you know what those 4 promises are. and maybe it's a good time to go and review them somehow, find them somewhere. When we make our promises to God and we promise to form an eternal bond of husband and wife, centering on true parents, and we also promise to raise our children to inherit the tradition of our true parents, and also we promise to love the world as true parents love the world. And in any relationship like this, in any relationship like this, especially in the fallen environment, there are going to be ups and downs. The ups can be pretty high, and the downs can be pretty deep. But I hope that people will understand that when they are blessed, they're not being blessed. They are not joining into a relationship with someone who has already completed their character. They have flaws. They have flaws. For some people, that seems to come as a surprise, interestingly enough, but they have flaws. Oh no, you're not perfect. Oh, I don't want to stay in this marriage anymore. You're not perfect. Um, I've seen that, and I think it's a well, it doesn't make much sense to me. All right. So anyway, uh, just to please remember that God is also part of that marriage, right? And remember what we learn in OSTP that once we are blessed, then the husband helps the wife to complete her character, and the wife helps the husband to complete her character. And I would say, I don't think it's actually in OSTP, but I would also say that the children help their parents to complete their character, especially when they're about 2 years old, or even before that. All that crying in the night, they're helping you to complete your character. So you can be grateful for that. You can be grateful. Thank you for helping me stretch my ability to be patient. Thank you. Thank you, little baby. Yes. Okay. And remember, the most beautiful sound in the world is the sound of a baby crying, because in a world where there are no babies crying, there's only destruction. Humanity cannot survive without babies. Yes. All right, then. Let's see what is going on. Oh, first of all, let me share you that share this. Let me share this with you. So in um, Taiwan, it turns out that Taiwan is not a large country, as you may know. In fact, well, I don't want to take time to figure it out now, but in this small country, I was told today, and someone was looking at it on the internet, so it must be true, right? It's true. Okay. In this volcano, there are more than 300 peaks that are at least 3,000 meters above, in elevation above sea level. 3,000 meters in feet, meters, I'm sorry, in meters. 2 feet is 9,842 feet. So roughly 10,000 feet. There are over 300 peaks that are over 10,000 feet. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Well, today's mountain that we went to was not 10,000 feet, but and I'm not exactly sure um, how high it was, because when I look at the internet, it was a Mount Taiping, which is located within the county of Ilan, and uh, we passed a post that said 2,000 meters. But then now that I look at the internet and check the total elevation of the mountain itself, it says it's only 1,950 meters. And and we were not at the top. So I'm confused. Anyway, it was high enough. Okay, it was high enough. It was high enough. We left here the Elon property at 5 in the morning. I drove for a while, and we had this road that was winding, 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 all up to the place where I'm about to show you. And then that was where we started to climb. Let me share this with you. Okay, so this is taken from the place where we started to climb. And I guess this is and the white stuff here moving in is a cloud that's moving in to block our view. Okay, that's all it is. Is it 7 seconds? Yes, I'm very stingy with my phone. Okay. Anyway, that gives you an idea of of what the mountains are like in central Taiwan, and there are plenty of high peaks. I don't know how high they are. Anyway, the highest peak I know is 3,952 meters. That is, I've seen that in a bunch of places, so I think I'm going to go ahead and believe that. Okay, so that's 3,952 meters. Yeah, and the feet. That's about 13,000 feet. 13,000 feet. That's the highest peak on the island of Taiwan. Yeah. So I'm surprised, I'm impressed, I guess, or surprised that you could fit that many high peaks on such a small island. I guess it just shows you that there's not much room left for people to be living and farming and building factories and stuff. But anyway, it's an interesting place, and up there it was quite cool. Here down here, it's still the as I mentioned yesterday, the temperature has so turned the corner, and obviously autumn is here, but still it's pretty uncomfortable during the day. But up at um, however high that was, um, it was quite cool, and many people, or most people actually, were wearing long sleeve shirts. I did not pack any long sleeve shirts when I came here. I'm going to Taiwan. What am I going to do with long sleeve shirts? Just take up space, I thought. Next time I'm going to bring a light jacket. All right, so that is that. That is. I hope you enjoyed your little surprise for the day. Okay. All right. All right. Uh, so Taiwan, very interesting place. Let's see here. Where shall we begin? Um, this is, I think, a little bit shocking or a little bit surprising to me. We had that situation in Georgia where more than 300 Koreans were arrested who were involved in an investment by some South Korean firms. And, on the Korean side, they're saying, well, if you want us to work there with the proper visas, then give us the proper visas. We're having to send people there without the proper visas because the embassy in Seoul is dragging its feet, or somebody, whether it's the State Department or somebody, is dragging their feet on the proper visas. And so now, they of course repatriated those 300 plus people back to Korea. But I understand that in Georgia there is a movement to try and get those people back because that investment was important for local jobs and so forth. And anyway, enforcing the letter of the law seems to have brought unintended consequences there, or negative consequences there. We all thought that Trump was going to round up all the criminals and all the people who had come in with across the southern border and the northern border with no visa at all, and were doing nasty stuff in the United States. We thought that those were the people who were going to get rounded up and sent back. But he has cast the net a lot more widely than we anticipated. And I just hope that this is not going to come back to bite him. next year in the election. And now we see that President Trump is reported expected to sign a proclamation as soon as Friday, overhauling, I'm sorry, overwhelming. It is a bit overwhelming. Overhauling the H-1B program by requiring a $100,000 fee for each visa application. That's not a misprint. A $100,000 fee for each visa application. A move the White House says is aimed at curbing overuse and protecting U.S. workers. The order would restrict H-1B entry unless the payment accompanies the application, an official familiar with the plan told Bloomberg. I have to kind of, you know, be a little bit concerned about this. That seems to be excessive. $100,000 application fee for each visa application. And this is going to protect U.S. workers. I actually think that it's not going to protect U.S. workers. Actually, I think when you bring in someone who has expertise, you have to consider that, well, that person is going to create other jobs, right? And President Trump seems to have unlimited faith in the American worker, but I just wonder how this is going to play out. Anyway, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out, right? We'll find out. And he often will try something, and if it doesn't work, then he'll change his mind. So let's see if maybe if this is one of those situations. All right. And another story that causes me some concern is this one, that his negative media coverage is illegal. And this story comes from, let's see where it comes, AFP. So AFP, of course, is a French wire service, and they are very leftist and very anti-Trump, very anti-US. So we can take this with a bit of a grain of salt, I guess. Trump on Friday bashed media coverage that he claimed was unduly negative and therefore, quote, illegal, unquote, stoking a debate over free speech following the suspension of comedian Jimmy Kimmel's TV show by ABC. They'll take a great story and they'll make it bad. See, I think it's really illegal personally. Trump, who has sued multiple major news organizations this year, told reporters gathered in the Oval Office. He said, okay, so that's the end of the story there, basically. Okay, so anyway, that's the place where apparently he says, I think it's really illegal personally. And well, criticizing the president is not illegal in America, and I've lived in a society where criticizing the president was illegal. I lived in Pak Chung-hee's Korea and also Chun Doo-hwan's Korea, where, yeah, you could get people were taken to jail for criticizing the president. In fact, I think at one point it was even a law that made it a criminal offense to criticize the government in Korea. And we don't want America to be like that, right? And I think maybe President, I hope this is just a bit of an emotional outburst on the part of President Trump, in that he's not really going to be pursuing this kind of thing too far, right? But it does cause me concern here. All right, anyway, let's see here. Now, some better news, I guess I would call it. Well, I guess we could sort of maybe try to call it almost good news. But Trump is going to meet Xi Jinping, and I consider that, I suppose, good news. Trump announces meeting with Xi Jinping at South Korea APEC summit scheduled for next month. President, let me bring this up again. President Donald Trump on Friday said he will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea next month, following a very productive phone call. So they talked on the phone, apparently. The meeting will take place during the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit on October 31st and November 1st. And the face to face meeting will be the first between the two leaders during Trump's second term in the White House. And I suppose it's whether this is good news or not is going to depend on what President Trump says to Xi Jinping during that meeting. Right now, there's a lot of reports going around that the U.S. is changing its defense policy. In the process of changing its defense policy, right now, we only have a draft, or I don't think we have it, but only a draft has been created that appears to kind of move the United States away from East Asia and the Western Pacific and toward, the Americas, the Caribbean and Central and South America, especially. And the recent actions against Venezuela seem to confirm that that is the kind of a switch that is taking place. So Xi Jinping will be going into this and the Chinese side will be going into this to see whether Trump says anything or does anything that tends to kind of confirm that. They will be looking for something like that, because if they're able to confirm it, then China will become much more aggressive in East Asia and the Western Pacific, including, you could say, a move against Taiwan, some sort of move against Taiwan, not necessarily an invasion, but some sort of move. It may be, something against South Korea, something against the Philippines. A lot of tension has been building between China and Philippines recently. So we'll see what this entails and what President Trump will prepare to say to Xi Jinping. Of course, what he should say is that Xi Jinping needs to honor human rights, that he needs to knock off this lie that China does not violate human rights. All sorts of human rights are being violated, not only in Xinjiang, but also for underground Christians in China and others. And also, I'm sure that he will bring up China banning the use of NVIDIA in China. So we'll see what they actually do here on that summit. The face-to-face meeting will be the first between, okay, and then Trump said he also agreed to travel to China in early 2026, and that Xi agreed to come to the United States at an appropriate time. President spoke with Xi about a range of issues, including trade, war in Ukraine, and a deal to approve the sale of TikTok. Now, war in Ukraine will be an important topic for President Trump to emphasize. He needs to tell Xi Jinping that any kind of assistance to Russia will be retaliated against, and if Beijing wants to stay in the dollar system, then they need to just completely cut off all assistance to Russia in terms of the Ukraine war. I also agree with President Xi that we would meet at the APEC summit in South Korea, and I would go to China in the early part of next year. And President Xi would likewise come to the United States at an appropriate time. Trump wrote on his Truth Social forum. The call was a very good one. We will be speaking again by phone, and we appreciate the TikTok approval. Both sides look forward to meeting at APEC. So apparently there's, I guess, a TikTok sale was approved, right? Separately, the Chinese state media said the two leaders held pragmatic, positive, and constructive phone talks. On the Chinese side, Xi told Trump that he should avoid imposing unilateral trade restrictions on China, according to a statement from the country's foreign ministry. China has been a major target for Trump tariffs, resulting in back and forth trade restrictions over the flow of fentanyl into the United States. And she also expressed hope, that the Trump administration would provide an open, fair, and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese companies in the U.S. Well, wait a second. What about a open, fair, and non-discriminatory business environment for U.S. companies in China? More and more U.S. and European companies are leaving China because the business environment is getting more and more difficult for them. Yes, but anyway, China never was one for acknowledging their shortcomings. Regarding TikTok, the ministry said the Chinese government respects the wishes of the company in question and would be happy to see productive commercial negotiations in keeping with market rules uh, lead to a solution that complies with China's laws and regulations and takes into account the interests of both sides. Well, that's a big sentence. Friday's call was the second between Trump and Xi since Trump returned to the White House. Okay. So what's happening with TikTok? I wasn't following that. Let's check that out. Okay, let's check that out just a minute here. Uh, so made progress to finalize a deal. Let's see, this is CNN. Uh, to finalize a deal that would sell most of TikTok's US assets to American investors. The deal would conclude a years long effort in Canada. It became a key factor. Okay. All right. So I guess that's it. Okay. So uh, made progress. So I haven't um, agreed yet, but they've made progress to finalize a deal that would sell most of TikTok's U.S. assets to American investors. Which the concern around TikTok has been that the Chinese government and the CCP have been using TikTok to influence young Americans and also to gather information about or and data about Americans who use TikTok. And I think this is why a lot of people have been sort of recommending that we not use TikTok and that we ask our children or young relatives, whoever, to get rid of TikTok from their phones. But I don't think that's been very successful, seen by the fact that TikTok is still very popular in the United States. But it is a tool. It has been shown to be a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. And the head of TikTok USA, keeps saying, "Oh no, I'm Singaporean. I'm Singaporean, right? Not related to the CCP." But the information, though, according to people who are in the know, is going to the CCP, or at least is going to servers that are located in China, one way or another, directly or indirectly. And so it has been um, um, a priority, I guess I can say, of the U.S. government to stop this. President Trump in the past has said that, I like TikTok because TikTok help get me elected. um, come on. I'm sure you can find other ways of getting votes, other than the CCP friendly uh, app. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. Um, oh, yeah, this is another story actually that causes me concern. A lot of stuff about Trump is causing me concern today. But here, um, let me reset this so that you can just see the headline. Trump invokes golden share to block U.S. steel plans for Illinois plant, Wall Street Journal reports. So this causes me concern because it involves the uh, interference of government into the management of a major private enterprise. And that's what happens in socialist countries or in communist countries. And now we see that President Trump or the Trump administration is doing this with U.S. Steel. So what's happening, of course, I understand their logic. They're saying, hey, we have to protect jobs. Um, this is a Reuters story. The Trump administration blocked U.S. Steel's plan to shut down production at one of its plants in Illinois, flexing its so-called golden share authority, the Wall Street Journal reported on Friday, citing a person familiar with the matter. U.S. Steel, now owned by Tokyo-based Nippon Steel, said in a statement on Friday that it has reversed its decision to shut down the plant, which employs nearly 800 workers. So this is a pretty blatant interference of the government in the running of a private enterprise uh, for political purposes. So let me just, I'm looking up here, what does a golden share authority mean? Here, this is this is a story on Yahoo Finance, August 11th, 2025. Let's see if they can educate us about what exactly is the golden share authority. Okay. In June, the White House announced it had acquired a, quote, golden share, unquote, in Pittsburgh-based United States Steel Corp as a part of a takeover by Japan's largest steelmaker, Nippon Steel Corp. The deal gives the U.S. government sweeping rights over U.S. Steel's governance and business decisions. Here, the Financial Post explains how a golden share works and why this arrangement is a little unusual. Well, it's not unusual in socialist countries or in communist countries, but in America, yes, it is, I would say, unusual. Quote, a golden share typically refers to a special class of ownership stake in a publicly traded company reserved for a government, writes this person, an associate professor at Indiana University. Okay, let's get actually the meat of the matter. Golden shares may be used by governments in deals related to national security or protecting vital industries such as defense, aerospace, energy, or telecommunications. Golden shares flourished in the 1980s in the United Kingdom when then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's government moved to privatize state-owned companies, state-run companies. Today, the UK government holds golden shares in several entities, including aerospace and defense companies, Rolls-Royce Holdings plc and BAE Systems plc, air traffic control provider, NATS Holdings, and the Royal Mail Postal Service. The Brazilian government has a golden share in aircraft and aviation systems. In a press release outlining the deal's terms, Nippon said the U.S. government will have the right to appoint one independent director to the company's board. Nippon will also need permission from the president or a designated appointee, such as the Secretary of Commerce, to reduce its committed capital investments, change U.S. Steel's name, or move its headquarters, re-domicile the company outside the U.S., transfer production or jobs outside the country, acquire competing businesses in the U.S., or make decisions about closing or idling existing manufacturing facilities. So I guess that last one on the list is what came into play this time. Nippon has committed to keeping U.S. Steel's headquarters in Pittsburgh and making approximately $11 billion in new investments in the steelmaker by 2028. The majority of the company's board of directors will be U.S. citizens, as will its chief executive and other key management personnel. Now, golden shares can include a financial stake, but that's not the case with Nippon Deal. The U.S. government doesn't invest any money in U.S. Steel and won't receive any equity. So they don't have any equity. They don't, in other words, they don't own a portion of the company. Golden shares aren't common in the US, which has typically championed free and open markets. Yes. And it's a Republican president now that is, uh, however, it's not uncommon for the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to propose mitigation measures if it believes particular transactions pose a national security risk, said lawyer Anthony Rapa, a partner at Blank Rome. Okay, so Rapa said the spectrum of measures in a national security agreement may include things like requiring a certain number of board members to be U.S. citizens, as is the case with the U.S. Steel deal. Okay. And this agreement has two distinct aspects. The first is that steel isn't considered critical infrastructure, and the sector isn't deeply embedded in the U.S. defense industrial base that supplies materials, products, or services to the U.S. military. This type of arrangement is being used for a company that doesn't fit the normal kind of conditions that would necessitate CFIUS to put those mitigation terms in place, said this person. The second is how much of the national security agreement has been codified into the Articles of Incorporation of U.S. Steel itself, including giving President Donald Trump this authority for as long as he is president. It's really concentrating the power very directly into the person of Donald J. Trump, as opposed to the president more broadly or to the parts of the executive branch that would have the delegated authority to do this. The Golden Share deal may have foreign companies pause about investing in the U.S., said this guy. All right. So yeah, as the article says, this is something that happens in the UK, but UK, they're not, uh, despite whatever Margaret Thatcher did, they're still kind of a socialist country compared to the United States anyway. And the US, as it says, champions open markets, free and open markets. So we have a Republican president and a businessman nonetheless. I mean, one would think that President Trump is a businessman. He should understand. So why does U.S. Steel have this golden share authority? This article sort of dances around that question, but I think it's pretty obvious. Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, okay, U.S. Steel. Now, in this case, they're preventing a plant in Illinois from being closed. All right. So, yeah, I think I smell politics very, 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 very much here. I smell politics. The Republican Party would, and President Trump would like to flip Illinois next year in the midterm elections. And this may be part of the effort to do that. And when you start making businesses decisions based on politics, it rarely ends well. It rarely ends well. In fact, yeah. Well, okay. So anyway, concern. I just that's all. Just concern. I hope President Trump knows what he's doing. All right. Well, so 800 jobs have been saved. Maybe 800 votes have been acquired. I don't know. Oh, Father, let's please give this man wisdom. Okay. Yeah, and then also here's another concern. Boy, I'm really full of it today, aren't I? Okay. Let's take a look at this one. Trump pauses $400 million in Taiwan aid. This is leading up to his telephone call with Xi Jinping, which has already happened. Right? So did he only stop it for the time that it took to make the phone call, or what's going on here? Okay. Maybe that's it. Maybe he approved it right after the phone call. But President Donald Trump has delayed approval of more than $400 million in military aid to Taiwan this summer, according to the Washington Post. The proposed package, described as more lethal than earlier rounds, included munitions and autonomous drones. White House official tells the Post the decision isn't yet final. The pause comes as Trump pursues a trade deal and potential summit with Xi Jinping. And then the Taiwan's foreign ministry declined to comment directly on the delay, but stressed that cooperation with the U.S. remains ongoing. The ministry added that Taiwan remains determined to strengthen its defenses and work with allies to jointly deter aggression. Yeah. Okay. And also interesting statement, right? At this forum that was recently held in China. Um, okay, anyway. Still, critics warn against slowing military support for Taipei. Dan Blumenthal, a former Pentagon official, said this would be exactly the wrong time for the U.S. to take the foot off the gas pedal. Okay. So hope that that $400 million comes through quickly, quickly. Okay. All right. Again, concern, concern. Excuse me here. Let me take some water. I got a bit dehydrated going up and down that mountain. Apologize for the cough there. All right. Let's see what else is going on. Where shall we go? Where shall we? I guess let's go to Epic Times. Let's see here. Prosecution rests in trial of Trump assassination attempt suspect. The trial resumes on Monday with Ruth, who is representing himself. Now, which assassination is this? Is this the one at the golf course? I think that's the case, isn't it? Mhm. I think that's the case. Anyway, okay. Anyway, keep on going. Okay. Trump says he withdraws nomination of federal prosecutor investigating Letitia James case. Okay. Prosecution rests case in trial of Trump. Okay, we already had that. China on cusp of commercializing U.S. pioneered Holy Grail fusion energy. Experts call for a 10 billion kick in U.S. funding, or the CCP will own a Kitty Hawk moment in mastering the most consequential breakthrough of the century. Well, yeah, fusion energy is very important, at least room temperature fusion. Um, Fusion energy, as I understand, is what the sun is based on, and in split, in atomic energy, nuclear energy, you're splitting atoms, but this instead is fusing atoms instead. And people have been trying to do this for a long, long time at room temperature. It can be done at a very, very, very hot temperatures, but not at a room temperature so far. China has spent up to $13 billion developing fusion energy since 2023 and could commercially replicate star power to generate electricity by 2030, becoming the first nation to master what's commonly dubbed the holy grail of energy solutions. Doing so would give the Chinese Communist Party the potential to reshape global geopolitics and dominate a new energy era, Massachusetts Institute of Technology physicist Warren. This cannot happen, said Representative Randy Weber, who chairs the House Science Space Technology Committee's Energy Subcommittee. Fusion energy technologies must be developed and deployed by nations that uphold democratic values, transparency, and international cooperation, not by authoritarian regimes that might exploit energy dominance as a weapon, he said in the opening remarks of the September 18 hearing of the nation's fusion programs. Yes, if this is true, that's quite concerning, isn't it? Uh, right now, China is the world's largest importer of oil, and this, if depending on to what extent they're able to scale it, could replace a great deal of their oil consumption and oil import. The U.S. must prioritize fusion energy development to outpace the CCP's aggressive timelines, or China will dominate the most consequential breakthrough of the century. Four fusion experts told the subcommittee during the 2 hour hearing that the CCP doesn't have to win what they see as an existential race, calling on the Trump administration to boost funding to match China's investment, coordinate research and development with allies, and establish fusion demonstration programs using the same playbook that spearheaded breakthroughs in other technologies. Unlike fission, nuclear fusion replicates the reaction produced by firing atoms, which is the power emitted by stars, and has the potential to provide limitless clean energy. It is often referred to as the holy, yeah, we already said that. Okay. Fusion has been researched by academic institutions and government laboratories since the 1950s, with significant breakthroughs in 2022, including Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory's National Ignition Facility completing a nuclear fusion reaction that produced more energy than used to power the experiment, spurring rapid exponential advancements since. This is our Kitty Hawk moment, ushering in a new era of virtually unlimited fusion power. Commonwealth Fusion Systems co-founder said, calling for a $10 billion one-time kick in Department of Energy funding. More money creation, huh? Mumgard, whose company aims to build a small fusion power plant with an ARC tokamak design by the early 2030s, said the nation's fusion industry has grown from 23 companies that raised $1.78 billion in private capital in 2021 to 53 companies that raised $10.6 billion in 2024. But now, though, these burgeoning enterprises need to test experimental fusion reactors in a limited risk environment, which is where DOE and federal funding could make the difference, he said. Mumgard said in his testimony that a fusion demonstration program similar to DOE's Advanced Fission Reactor program would accelerate deployment of at least 3 different fusion power plants approaches, with the construction started by the end of 2028. All right, so anyway, we learned that China is on the cusp of this great breakthrough. Okay? All right. Charlie Kirk's memorial service to be held in Arizona on Sunday. All right. If you're in the Arizona area, that'd be a good place to go. And I imagine it'll be broadcast live. And Trump will be there. Vice President Vance will be there. It's rare for the president and the vice president to be in the same place at the same time for security reasons, but that's happening here, it looks like. Okay. Europe's twin headache. Economists warn about debt pressures in UK and France. Yes, a lot of countries, we talked about this yesterday, a lot of countries around the world are in trouble financially. And, more than armies, money really influences changes in geopolitics, it seems. This may be another example of that. Let's see what happens to UK and France. Already France, there have been protests for even a relatively minor cut in the government's budget. And I think that, reducing the number of holidays by 1, I think it is, and people are going crazy over it. Okay. 6 common hair routine mistakes to avoid. I think we could probably avoid that one. And here, an impending population crisis, question mark. World fertility rate hits 60-year low. No. And I think it's not coincidental that this crisis is occurring basically, following Father's cosmic Songha and following the rejection of Father by most of the world. Most of the world. As you can see, got a lot of green here in Africa, and I guess that's where populations are growing. Okay, and also some in Central Asia and also South Asia there, some parts of South America, Central and South America, but most of the world is pink and red. And China, Korea's bright red, China's bright red, Japan's kind of pinkish, right? And most of Europe is red. Russia is kind of a dark pink there. And one reason it's important is that larger populations create more wealth, and um, so if you have a shrinking population, it's going to be more and more difficult to maintain the size of the economy, maintain the level of wealth that the country is creating. I think that's why people talk about this as being a population crisis. So, boys and girls, get married, have lots of children, please. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's go look at what else Breitbart is doing. Already covered a couple of their stories. Demoralized Democrats rally to besiege ICE center in Chicago. Right? They're trying to find some way to rally their troops. Mhm. And it looks like the Democrats are going to try and get the government to shut down. And these government shutdowns, they always, oops, here we go again. Okay, hold on a second. Where are we right now? We're in the US, Canada. These cases, we always go where? We go to Canada, don't we? Okay. And we refresh. Voila. Yes, Canada always works. Okay, thank you, Canada. Uh, so Chuck Schumer has made it very clear he wants a shutdown. So the deadline is the 30th, September 30th, and the Congress has to pass a budget laws by then, or a continuing resolution by then, or else there won't be any money to keep the government in business, and so they'll have to stop, and they'll have to stop, paying. The thing that always hurts the most is the fact that military uh, salaries don't go out. I mean, especially the lowest ranks. I mean, some of them are already on food stamps, and so that's really the only place that I worry about. The other stuff, they get paid eventually anyway. They always they never lose any money in the long run over this stuff. The government employees. And, um, anyway, Thune told Breitbart exclusively that Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is careening the nation toward a government shutdown and labeled the impending impasse a Schumer shutdown. So they always, try to blame each other, and they try to, and the Democrats, I'm sure, will try to put this on Trump. So we'll see what happens here. All right. Hillary Clinton on Kimmel Kirk, very clear example of using the power of the state to suppress speech. She could be right on that situation. And let's see here. GOP leaders urge allies to reject UN plans to recognize Palestinian terrorist state. And I think this time every September, uh, the UN General Assembly has opened up to the leaders of all the member countries who are able to come and give a speech. And the U.S. president often gives a speech. And in past years, Castro, for example, came to New York to give a speech and all this kind of stuff. And I think this time they're going to allow the president of the Palestinian Authority to come in and also give a speech, as if he is a as if he's representing an actual country. Unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state would be a reckless policy that undermines prospects for peace. And as President Donald Trump has branded it a dangerous reward for terror. Okay, so this is a letter that they're putting out. Hamas, right? Now, we'll see what the UN does. But UN is very anti-Israel, consistently anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian and pro whoever is against the United States, basically. Trump's updated citizenship test ditches diversity, promotes one nation, one people. Hmm. Let's see if they have some of the questions here. The 88-page guide is titled "One of the Spotlight." So it looks like the booklet says to the. Let's try to get rid of some of these strange ads on the right. There we go. The booklet says to the roughly 800,000 people who take the citizenship test each year, when applicants for naturalization take the oath of allegiance, the naturalized citizens make important promises of loyalty to the United States, including to give up loyalty to other countries and to defend the Constitution and laws of the United States. The words are meant to set the tone that if they're becoming an American citizen, they're choosing loyalty to the United States over their home country, said Jessica Vaughn, policy director at the Center for Immigration Studies. There are plenty of examples around the world of countries that have tried to be multicultural. Take Belgium, for example. They have different cultures that they don't want to subordinate to a common culture. The American experience has been the opposite by successfully assimilating people of all cultures, races, and language into a common culture. Progressives prefer a divided society of competing population groups that can be ruled by a benevolent, university trained elite of themselves and their children. That goal is now threatened by Trump's emphasis on empowering 300 million cooperating and unified American citizens. This month, for example, former President Barack Obama slammed Trump and insisted that Americans undergo a progressive experiment to test whether new migrant groups and U.S. citizens can live peacefully in the United States. There's never been an experiment like this where you have people from every corner of the globe show up in one place, Obama said on October 16th, adding, "We say based on these ideals, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, and a constitution and a bill of rights and a democracy, that we can somehow figure out how to get along and maintain our private beliefs and pray to God in our own ways and retain aspects of the cultures that we bring from wherever it is that we're coming from, and yet still decide that we are all Americans." Pro-migration groups, unsurprisingly, hate the new test. Oh, okay, we have just 1 minute here. Let's take a look at what are some of the tests. Okay, what is the supreme law of the land? Okay, what does the Constitution do? All right, sets up the government, defines the government, protects basic rights of Americans. All right. Seems all three are kind of right. Are we supposed to choose one of those? I guess all. Well, I guess any of those three are correct, right? Uh, the idea of self-government is in the okay. So this is a list of correct answers, I guess. Okay, not multiple choice. What is an amendment? A change to the Constitution, an addition to the Constitution. Okay. What do we call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? All right, all right. Let's see where it gets more difficult. Who does the Senate, U.S. Senator represent? Okay. In what month do we vote for president? That's still pretty easy. Under our Constitution, some powers belong to the states. Which is one power of the states? Schooling and education, provide protection, provide safety, fire departments, driver's license, zoning, land use. Okay. Who is the governor of your state now? All right. And DC residents should answer that DC does not have a governor. Okay. What is the capital of your state? All right. Some people are going to start missing these. But, yeah, I remember when my wife was preparing to take the exam, she was, memorizing the name of the governor, the names of the senators, and so forth and so on. Anyway, yes, it's a good experience, maybe also for American citizens as well. Someone today was asking me, how many members of the House of Representatives are there in the United States? And I was able to answer. So you never know when someone's going to test you on this. So it's good. It's good to know. All right, gotta go. I'll see you Monday. And by this time Monday, we will have news on Hak Jahan. She may be taken into custody. She may be in jail by this time Monday. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. God bless Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.